Say Mike, say hi Mike.
Hey everybody.
Oh my goodness. So, we have seen a movie that, to be honest, like a month ago, I was not thinking looked that swell.
No, this movie did not look very good just even a few months ago.
Yeah, it really didn't. It had one trailer where it went, okay, that could very well be the only funny scene, and they just showed it in the trailer. And I think I even whispered that to you.
And remember its teaser trailer? It had like a terrible teaser trailer.
Yeah, where it was
just a fox talking on a white background.
Yeah, and it had a bunch of other characters, and it was like a smirky fox, and I was just like, this doesn't look good. Oh yeah, we went to see Zootopia, if you didn't see the title of the video. Zootopia, the Disney movie that felt like a lot of DreamWorks movies. At least from the trailers. And what's funny about it is that this is something that I actually learned a few weeks ago, is that originally the fox was going to be the main character in the movie, but then they realized, what if we made it the female bunny character instead? And suddenly they had to rewrite the whole movie to make it about the bunny as the protagonist instead of like the sidekick. And
yes.
Suddenly the whole movie like blew up, and essentially like just making the female character the main character was like huge for them, and it really shows. Like,
yeah.
This is a good movie.
This was a really good movie. Surprisingly good. It's
surprisingly good because this concept, like, you know, oh, animals living together, could have gone really bad. Like, I feel like there have been
really easily mediocre. Like, there's been dozens and dozens of these animals all talking and living in some kind of animal society thing. Like,
I mean, honestly,
there was the fish movie with Will Smith.
You know, that was obviously that was like a Finding Nemo.
Yeah, I know.
Even though I think that they even said that it was made at the same time. But yeah, there are tons of these movies and that do not click. I mean, honestly, even, I hate to say it, even like Monsters Incorporated is kind of in that same vein where it's just a little too... I like that movie, but it's still a little too, like, pun, gaggy sort of thing. And this one, and then, or on the totally other side of it, really is like The Good Dinosaur, which wasn't necessarily a bad movie, just was really not super great. And it had some weird elements, like the fact that they were basically all farmers, that it was basically a Western, but with dinosaurs. It was, yeah. So there are a lot of these movies, though. And this one was done actually really well. It had its flaws. I think that there are certain scenes where I went, okay, but it has a pretty
it's got a really solid narrative story.
Yeah, it really does. And it tells a couple different things. Like, there's a big setup of like the young girl in the big city. She has her dream of being the top in her field, and she's dealing with, it's not really sexism, but like there are some hints to it, but just the fact that like people underestimate her and she has to solve this big case with basically with, you know, very few resources. So there's this very like kind of simple her learning to believe in herself story, like going through obstacles, and then it gets darker, and there's like a second layer of talking about prejudice in this that's really sophisticated. That's the word I was thinking of. There's some sophisticated themes in here that you don't usually see from a Disney movie. And I don't want to downplay Disney movies. I'm just saying in general, like, they aren't usually quite this sophisticated, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think where we go from here as far as talking about the movie. But essentially, like we said, Ginnifer Goodwin, who is probably best known for Once Upon a Time, the TV show. She plays Snow White, plays this really energetic, really go-getter sort of bunny who is, and you know, rabbits are never allowed to be like police officers, or they never tried. They tend to be farmers because, you know, it's low to the ground and it doesn't involve danger and that sort of thing. But she really wants to. She wants to go and save people. So she goes and she joins the police force, and she's at the top of her class, and the mayor of the big city totally takes credit for the fact that they're hiring her on to be in the big city, but no one on the force believes in her, and she has this chance to get this
solve this case
of this missing otter, who is one of many different predator animals that have been gone missing. And in this universe, they never really explain what the predators eat now, which I was actually waiting for them to, weren't you?
Yeah, I was really waiting for them to sort of explain sort of just how they're like a little bit more into like, but all they do is like they eat donuts and like cereal, and it's just a bit odd. But it seems like everything was maybe wheat and wheat byproducts.
Yeah, so basically this is Night Vale's nightmare.
Yes.
Essentially. But there's this whole backstory that you see through the little girl.
We have a flashback right at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, the very beginning of the movie starts with the Judy, the bunny character, when she's a little girl, and it does a nice little exposition where she's in a school play explaining how once upon a time there were, you know, we were all really animals, and some people were hunters and some people were hunted, but now we have evolved and we are living in harmony. It is a really adorable scene because those baby animals are cute. But so again, like the whole setup is that all the animals are not like, yes, there are like criminals, but none of them are feral or wild animals, except that they seem to maybe, that part of the mystery is these animals that, or these specific predators, like I think they said 13 or 14, that have gone missing, and it turns out that, yeah, that there's something going on with them. So she teams up with this conniving fox, and she had a bad experience with a bully who was a fox when she was growing up. So she and her parents have warned her about foxes, so there's that prejudice. But she ends up first trying to befriend him, and then realizing that he conned her. And then eventually, when she gets this case, goes, okay, you're gonna help me. And
mainly because he's her only lead.
Yeah, that's the only, basically the last person to see the kidnap, the otter that's gone missing is, again, I am yawning so much.
Well, we've been up since 7 a.m.
I know, it's been a long day. Is this fox, who's played by Jason Bateman, playing nearly every character Jason Bateman's ever played.
Yeah, it's a very Jason Bateman character.
And so they have to work together, and eventually they become friends, even though I thought that the transition was pretty good. Like, the way she earns his respect is actually done pretty well, and then they reveal a little bit later that he actually was once much like her, where he had a lot of dreams and ambition, and he thought the best of people, and then he got burned bad when he was a little kid, and so ever since he's kind of played into the stereotypes and the prejudices that other people see in him as being a conniving, untrustworthy fox. It's a pretty dark scene, and it's done really well. It actually, and what's funny is, again, we've talked about this with Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if we ever we talked about it necessarily in the review, because I was still like trying to process Guardians of the Galaxy, but I've talked about it on Twitter, and I think maybe on one of the podcasts, that the problem with it is that it focuses so much on Peter Quill's backstory, when the more interesting story is really Gamora. That it would have been way better if it started with Gamora's backstory, and then we saw a flashback to Peter Quill, so we get why he's that way, but it's not the focus and the bookmark of the bookend of the whole movie. So
this is the movie that didn't make the mistake Guardians of the Galaxy made.
Exactly. It does the best job of setting up the more interesting female character, having the smirky guy who kind of tries to trick her, her earnestness, and then you find out in the middle of it, when they have a quiet moment, why he's that way. But it works because you don't have to deal with his BS the whole time, you know?
Yeah.
It works so much better to have the jerky guy's reveal in the middle and not have it be the focus of the whole plot. And this is the exact way to do it. So it just works really well. So they end up becoming friends, and they end up helping to solve stuff, but it's not quite over. And then there's actually the way that the third act works really well, because you're set up to think in any other movie this would be that there would be a specific point where it's over, because it seems like all the loose ends are tied up, even though even when things were happening with that, I was thinking well, clearly it's not tied up, because they still have to figure stuff out. And then it gets into all the darker stuff with specific prejudices, and the good guys having specific prejudices, and and then in the way that that governments target uncomely, I guess, not uncomely, what's the word I'm thinking of, undesirable citizens and that sort of thing. It's really there's a lot going on in this movie that works in a lot of good ways, you know? Yes. I'm trying so hard, because we were planning not to do a spoiler, but I also don't want to give away all the stuff in the movie.
I know.
You know?
It's hard to talk about it and then not give spoilers away towards what happens.
Exactly, especially with this movie, because there are a lot of twists and turns that you aren't expecting.
Yeah, the twists don't stop coming, because you think you've run into the big villain of the piece, and
not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah. In fact, I for a while wasn't sure what was going on. Is there a villain? Is there a specific character villain? Is it just something that's happening naturally? We don't know. So it actually, now granted, I had some guesses, and some of which came true, but at the same time I also was pretty I thought that it could go a few different ways, and it surprised me in that. Let's talk about the cast, because we haven't gone. So we talked about the two main. Jennifer Goodwin's really good in this. She really carries so much of the movie. But besides that, we have Idris Elba as her chief. And I cannot believe it took till the end of the movie for me to go oh wait, the guy with the deep British accent who seems to not be trustworthy of the new person is Idris Elba. Of course it is. Why did I not connect that in my brain, you know? Mm-hmm. But and he's really good in it. He plays the jerk. He plays the jerk who's rough around the edges, and he's not particularly kind to our budding hero. And then let's see, the incomparable J.K. Simmons plays the mayor, and that's pretty amazing. I almost thought it was Oh gosh, what's his name? The guy who played who's in Monsters Inc. and it's on the tip of my tongue. The guy who plays Sully in Monsters Inc.
John Goodman.
I thought it was John Goodman forever, and then when he started yelling at his assistant, I was like, oh wait, no, Whiplash. I was like, wait, no, Whiplash and Spider-Man. Okay, yeah, J.K. I think I even whispered to you, I think that's J.K. Simmons, and you're like, yeah.
Parker, get in here.
Parker, get in here. I was like, why do I suddenly hear him swearing? Oh man, he does a really good job. He's a very good lion. And then we have, oh, you know what? I recognize this actor, but I don't know where from. He's been in like a billion things, but he plays the bunny dad. But like his voice is so familiar. Yeah, I don't recognize him from anything like 100%. But, and then Bonnie Hunt plays the mom, which is like a purely Bonnie Hunt sort of role. And then I don't know who Nate Torrance is supposed to be, but he played the kind of chubby leopard. You know who I thought that was for forever? I seriously thought that was, oh gosh, what's his name? From, Unbeatable Kimmy Schmidt.
Unbeatable Kimmy Schmidt.
Or Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, I know. I still don't.
Pinot Noir. I really
thought it was Titus Andromeda.
I thought it was Titus. I'm sorry. It isn't though. It is a white guy.
I thought it was. What's his name? He was in what we just saw. The movie with George Clooney, and he was the accountant guy that got with the movie star at the end.
Yeah, it wasn't him.
I know it's not him, but I thought it was him forever.
I'm not like this guy has been in like 1,000 things, but I recognize him from none of it. You know what I mean? Like he was in one episode of Reno 911, and he was also in one episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but not in one I recognize. Like, that's how I don't recognize any of the things he's been in, and yet his voice sounds so familiar. And one of the standouts, which I cannot believe I did not recognize until we saw her is Jenny Slate as the assistant. Yeah, which is funny because then I'm like, oh right, that's why I heard her voice. That's why like her laugh was so distinct, because I was like, that laugh is so distinct, where do I recognize it from? Because it's Mona Lisa Saperstein. Duh. I kept thinking, yeah, money please. And I told Mike, but I was like, during the trailer, during the ending credits, I was like, if she'd only said money please, I would have known it immediately. But that wasn't a line of dialogue in the movie. And I'm trying to think who else stood out. Alan Tudyk played Duke Weaselton, who was, I think it was funny because someone told me before, like a couple days ago, had told me that, there was some pretty bad prejudice against weasels in this movie, and I'm like, I can kind of see that. If you are a fan of weasels, you're probably going to be kind of disappointed in this movie. John DiMaggio plays a character whose name I don't recognize. I'm assuming that he just shows up. Oh, Maurice LaMarche played Mr. Big. That makes sense to me.
That makes total sense to me.
That makes total sense. Yay, Maurice LaMarche. There was someone else that, there are a lot of, like, regular voice actors that you would recognize from just cartoons in general. And then Kristen Bell had a cameo in this. There were a lot of voice actors in particular that I recognized in the thing. And I will, so yeah, the voice acting's really good. And also, we didn't see it in 3D, but if you are a fan of 3D, I gotta guess that this is gonna be a really pretty movie to see in 3D, because the actual world, like, of the city is so pretty. They make a big deal of setting up the different boroughs. So there's one that's in a rainforest one, there's one in the tundra, there's one in the desert, which I don't feel like we actually saw. Did we see the desert at all?
No, I don't think we went to the desert.
Okay. Maybe they're saving that for the sequel. I don't know. And actually, they set up the sequel really well. Like, ridiculously well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying... Yeah.
Because of their third act.
Yeah.
They spend all this time in the third act building it up.
They really do. And they do a really good job of it. But yeah, but the actual world building of this movie is good. Like, it's so pretty, and there's a really nice montage towards the beginning where you get to see it for the first time. Like, you hear about it, but then you get to see it. It's really done well. So I'm trying to think what else to say about the good before we get to, like, a couple nitpicks.
I don't know what else to say. Good. We've sung its praises for a while here.
We're trying to keep it vague because we're not going to do, I think, a spoiler thing this time around.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do a spoiler warning.
Oh!
I'm not cutting. Spoilers if you want.
Okay, so we can get into that. All right, so I feel like hopefully
I'm just not going to cut. So
okay.
So there's no 5-second delay here because seriously, I'm going to be editing this in Chicago on a computer that's in Indianapolis, and it's just very hard to move the mouse and make edits and clips and cuts and things, you know, from 3 hours away by car.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to do any spoilers at all.
No, we can do a spoiler thing. It's just like spoilers, and then it's gonna be like there's no clip, there's no cut.
Okay. So, all right, then I'll say this. If you are a fan of, I'm trying to think, like, I will say try to see it maybe on a slower time, because we saw with a lot of kids, and oh my gosh, there's some legitimately scary stuff for kids in this movie, and there were kids flipping out.
There were kids flipping out at every.
That is true.
Like throughout the movie.
To be fair, yeah. Look, I try to be fair to parents because, granted, like, going out with your kids. But if you have, like, toddlers, leave them at home.
Well, to be fair, this is a Disney movie. What are you expecting?
Still, like, toddlers.
At a 5 p.m. show on a
toddlers,
Sunday.
Like 2-year-olds. Yeah, like, they're not gonna behave. They're not gonna behave. I'm just saying, like, so just be warned, there are some scary moments. So if you have, like, young kids, be forewarned that there are some legitimately, like, stuff that will scare really young kids.
Yeah, there's some scary. I will put it at that.
I would say, like, scary for adults, but, like, but stuff where, like, I could see how a little kid could get freaked out by it.
Yeah.
But, so besides that, yeah, it's really good. I think we can get into, like, the couple nitpicks, because I have a couple. I know we're both yawning so bad. We'll get into the couple nitpicks here in just a second. So, with that, you got anything else to say?
No, it was really good.
Good. Alright, so with that, spoilers. We're doing spoilers now. Alright, is that good enough?
Yeah, that's good enough.
That's good enough. So, the one scene, and technically, like, it's not like they could cut it out entirely, but it felt like it worked the least and was, like, the most awkward, like, really awkward, really stupidly awkward, okay? Was the scene where it's the first clue they go to. So the fox is really hoping that this slows her down or, like, makes her give up because it makes her uncomfortable. But they go to this nude yoga studio, because all the animals wear clothes. So it's this weird thing where, like, oh yeah, the joke is that, you know, all the animals wear clothes. So, like, seeing just animals without wearing clothes is nude, right? Which is okay, fine, you know, it's kind of playing up a joke. Then you get to, like, these yoga animals that are stretching in ways where, like, you should be seeing genitalia. And the fact that they have no genitalia in the animal parts
makes the joke really weird.
It's really weird because the bunny is still very, very uncomfortable. So it's like you should be seeing gigantic animal genitalia because first of all, it's an elephant. It's a lady elephant. So you should be seeing, like, all the bits. Instead, you see a blank space. You also don't see their butts, like their buttholes. And no, look, I get it. It's a Disney movie. But they're the ones that set up the scene. They set up the scene to be, these are animals without their pants on, showing all their bits. That's the scene. So why, Disney, did you make a scene like that and then have them be completely void of all like, anuses and genitalia?
The void is really what makes it the weird part.
It is so weird, and they're showing it as this awkward thing. It doesn't make any. It's like the one scene in this whole movie that I did not actually enjoy because it confused me.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, look, I don't want to see animal buttholes, like, ever. I don't need it. I don't need to see it. I don't want to see animal genitalia in my kids' movie. But you're the ones who set that up, Disney. There was no reason, like...
John Lasseter's script helper. This you did fabulous throughout most of the rest of this film.
I know.
You left in one scene that didn't work.
It was so weird. Like, I honestly would have been totally okay with them, like, doing that jokey thing where they had hid all the bits.
Yeah.
But even then, it'd been like, what are you not showing us, movie? That's almost worse. Like, you know what would happen? Then there'd be fan art that someone made. Oh, God. Now, here's the thing. People were making jokes about this months ago, that this movie would create really horrible fan art. Like, horrible fan art. The problem is this. I have a feeling that scene is going to inspire realistic animal genitalia. Well, not realistic genitalia on animals from that scene. And I'm not looking forward to accidentally finding that in the random Google sphere.
Just browsing around on Tumblr.
It's just browsing around, suddenly just right there. Yeah, let me just put it this way. Do not, if you're gonna go onto the BoJack Horseman tag on Tumblr, you're gonna see some Mr. Peanut Butter genitalia. I don't want to see it, and yet I've seen it because someone drew it. They put it online, and I've seen it. It's awkward. So, it is, I mean, that's the other thing, though, about that Shakira, the character that is voiced by, Giselle. I remember people seeing that character design and going, oh, crap. They've already, like, they're leaning into the furry porn that's going to be created from fan art of this movie. They're leaning into it. Good job, movie. So, but yeah, by the way, yeah, Giselle is voiced by Shakira. And I whispered over to Mike when we saw that it was Shakira. I was like, I thought it was either Shakira or the greatest impersonator of Shakira I've ever heard. Because it was basically Shakira. Oh, crap. So yeah, I just had this huge problem with that scene, and I wanted it to be over as soon as possible, because nothing about it made sense, and they didn't need to do it. They could have, like, done anything else with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could have done so many other things but they chose to do the nudity for animals that they couldn't actually show nudity for. It's so weird. So I guess we could talk a little bit about the actual spoilers of this movie, and as far as like what happens in the third act.
Yes, please get into this.
Okay, so
if I have any input, I will go into it. It's just that it's very difficult driving on an expressway and trying to convey thoughts.
We're on the expressway back to Chicago because we were hanging out with Mike's parents this weekend. So we're driving back, and so if it's really loud, we're sorry. We're on the highway. So there
are a lot of cars out tonight.
The short of it is that these that like specific predators disappeared. These like 14 people, and the Judy Hop figures out that they were being held by the mayor because they had gone essentially rabid or savage. That was a really specific choice of words, by the way. But they had gone rabid and were being held by the mayor because the mayor didn't want to
panic the city.
Didn't want to panic the city by the idea that these predators have an outbreak of something, like, and especially because he is a lion. And he was worried. He was mostly worried about his own, job. But she figures it out with the help of her new fox friend. And by that point, they are friends. And so the mayor gets arrested, and she has this big speech, and she actually encourages Nick the fox to join the police force because he helped her solve the case.
And he did some detective work.
He did some detective work. He did a really good job. And basically they had helped the assistant mayor, who she basically said, like, oh yeah, I think he just wanted the sheep vote, and that's why he hired me. But she ends up becoming mayor, and so the assistant sheep mayor becomes the regular mayor, and I don't think I'm making any sense at this point.
Interim mayor.
And so Judy, our hero, does this interview after the case is solved, and she says some stuff about how, well, they are all predators, and we think that there might be a link between them because they are predators, and that they have
biological instinct,
and we think that might be coming out. And the trauma that Nick the fox had dealt with as a kid was basically connected to what would be kind of considered a hate crime in our world. I mean, we could pretty much call it that. The thing is,
although living in Indiana, there's no such thing as a hate crime.
Yeah, but where he was supposed to go to, when he was a little kid, he was supposed to be in the basically in the Cub Scouts, and the Cub Scouts put a muzzle on him and basically mocked him and yelled at him and didn't let him join. And it traumatized him enough for him to basically shun all the ideas he ever had about the kind of person he wanted to be. And he has a moment of PTSD in this, where when Judy is talking, where he's back in that muzzle, and he totally shuts her out afterwards, walks away and says, "This is what you think of me. I'm not going to, like," and she goes, "Oh no, you're not one of them." "Oh, one of them? Really? You're gonna do that?" So after that, then she realizes that basically a lot of innocent predators lose their jobs, and she feels immensely guilty. I'm actually surprised that they didn't have the, like, cops start arresting. I thought that they were going to go with that allegory, you know?
Yeah.
They did not. Maybe a little too dark for the kids. That might be it. But there's definitely major prejudice going on for the predators, and she recognizes it, so she quits because she feels like it's her it was her responsibility and she failed. So she goes back to the farm, and after connecting with basically the bully that made her think that all foxes were jerks, who was pretty actually violent with her as a kid, and he ends up genuinely apologizing to her and saying that you get the sense that he had an anger management class because of the way he was speaking. Like, he clearly took some kind of course to deal with his anger issues, which I thought it was a good scene. But she realizes that the thing that's been hurting them, or hurting the predators, and turning those few of them wild, was this particular plant, and that it didn't just affect predators. It actually could hurt, or it could affect anyone else.
Which I thought was going to come back, but it actually didn't.
Yeah, I think it was just supposed to be like to make it clear that this wasn't just a predator thing. It wasn't like a nature thing, you know?
Yeah, I know, but I kind of thought that, you know, you would see, like, even if it was just the sheep that got shot with it.
Yeah, maybe. But so she figures out that it isn't, that someone must be targeting them, because that's the only reason why it hasn't been affecting anyone else. I'm actually surprised that it wasn't from the scratch, because I thought that's what it was. That, like, because remember that one guy was scratched and he immediately started flipping out. Yeah,
there's tons of false leads and false hints.
But it's done smartly.
Movie, yeah.
Yeah. But she figures it out.
Especially with, like, who the big bad villain is.
Yeah, even though I did figure that out after a little bit.
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of myself for that. So they end up going to, well, it looks like a meth lab, but it's not a meth lab. That was another great...
And they make Breaking Bad references.
They do make a Breaking Bad reference, which I was waiting for with that, because he had on... So they go to this lab that's clearly making, like, the drug that people are being hit with, that these predators are being hit with, and there's this sheep that's in, like, the full like bodysuit thing, and then and the guy's calling his boss or whatever, and because they realized that he was, like, shooting with a paintball gun, shooting these particular targets to make it look like predators in particular are going rabid. And then the Breaking Bad reference was two of his buddies come with, like, was it coffee?
Cappuccino, maybe?
I think maybe cappuccino. He's like, oh, I gotta go. Walt and Jesse are here with the stuff. And I was like, Breaking Bad reference.
Even though we've never seen that show, we recognize it.
Yeah, exactly. Also, there were totally references to future Disney movies, because the one Weasel was selling.
Yeah, the one Weasel where they got the information of where they could find this Doug guy.
And he was like, I got all the DVDs, and they showed someone, like, they showed a Wreck-It Ralph, and, like, the punny, animal punny version of Wreck-It Ralph.
An animal punny version of Tangled.
And I
kind of want a screenshot of
I do too.
So we could look at all.
And then they're like, and I got ones that haven't even come out yet, and I'm pretty sure they're actual, like, future Disney movies that are in production right now.
Watch there actually be one that hasn't been announced yet in there.
There might be. I think there was a Jack and the Beanstalk one, which I can't remember if they're actually doing or not. But they're like, I got ones that aren't even coming out yet. I thought that was cute too. There aren't too many of those references, but there are maybe just enough. Just enough. Oh, there's also, Maurice LaMarche specifically plays the Godfather. It's not even subtle. It's not subtle at all. It's not a subtle parody at all. It's just
over the top and beating you over the head with it.
They are brought to him on the day of his daughter's wedding.
I bet you Maurice LaMarche had the most wonderful time playing that character.
Yeah, seriously, it's super, like, it's just Don Corleone as a vole. That's it. That is that entire scene is him as a vole. That was a good call because like
and also like all the early hints of this movie was that character was the big villain.
Yeah, there's a lot of it there, and also you realize in that scene that the little mouse person that the bunny had saved earlier, that I thought was just a gag. Like, everybody thought it was a gag, just that like she happened to save this tiny little mouse, happens to be the daughter of the Godfather. And that was such a great call. And then I realized, like, oh yeah, she does have gigantic mafia hair. She does have it, and they have like this cute little friendship too, where the daughter and where it's like, I love your dress, thank you, as the bunny's being held over like ice cold water. It's pretty adorable. Like that whole bit is so great. Sorry, we backtracked. But so they end up they have this huge chase, which I felt like went on maybe a smidge long, but that's me nitpicking. It went on a little long, but they end up getting the evidence. There was one bit of
like that whole middle section of the movie, like early middle section of the movie, feels really long.
No, I'm talking about the chase after the drug.
Oh yeah, you're right. That chase. I'm thinking of the chase where the first time she catches the weasel guy.
Yeah, that did take a little while.
Like, that area of the
also,
movie.
Where they were like, you need a real cop. And I'm like, how does... Okay, if she is the smallest person on the force, how does anyone stop crime in the like Mouse City?
Yeah.
Yeah, how does anybody... They're all gigantic. How does anybody solve crime in that area of the town? Especially because the buildings knock over like willy-nilly.
Yeah, I know. It's why Mr. Big is so big. He runs crime. Apparently he does. But that looked like a really clean slum, if that was a slum. Yeah.
Oh man, there are also some really goofy store joke names in that part.
The Big Donut.
There's also Mouseies, like Macy's, and Targrat. Yeah, that was pretty. I was like, come on, you guys, you can do a little better.
What do you mean? No, they could do more.
Okay. So anyway, all right. We backtracked, going forward again. So they get the drug. They have the evidence. They're going through the Museum of History, which I feel like they just wanted another cool
scene,
yeah, like place. It worked, but it was just weird that it was like, really, we've never seen this space before, and now that's going to be our big. Anyway,
finale room.
Yeah, exactly. So the interim mayor comes in. It's like, oh, thank goodness. And luckily the bunny, because she's smart, goes, wait a second. How did you know
we're here?
You were behind us. How did you know that? And immediately, of course, like, again, I figured it out quite a bit ago, because it's like, isn't it sort of convenient?
I figured it out right when they revealed her. Like,
really? I did it way before.
Not like the movie revealed her, but I mean like when she was there, and I was like, oh, there's our villain.
No, I figured it out way before.
I didn't figure it out before.
I figured it out. I thought that it was a viable choice around the time when we saw her office.
When she got the bigger office? And she was
even before that.
Oh, when in the basement?
You know what, it was that, but it was more when the Lion had said, like, when it was clear that the Lion wasn't, like, the big bad. When it was clear that he was just trying to cover it up.
Yeah. I actually thought it was going to dovetail back to Mr. Big.
I thought it was going to dovetail back to the officer that he actually did know about it. Her boss. I thought that could be it, or that he was in on it. I was kind of glad he wasn't, because that felt like a real, like the jerk boss ends up being the big bad. That felt like it would have been a little too easy.
Yeah, I like that he didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, that he was just kind of, and that he was kind of still an asshole, but like he wasn't evil, because that's really easy to do.
Then he did learn to respect her. You know, it's like, yes, you are a good cop. You know, towards the middle of the movie, he learns his lesson.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes, we're going backwards again, was when she was almost bullied into giving up her badge early, and Nick was the one to go, no! First of all, you gave her no resources, and she made it this far, but also, she still has 10 hours, and you're going to give her...
those last 10 hours.
10 hours. I really like how that... Because one, like... it was him sticking his neck out, and it felt really genuine. Like, it felt like an honest moment. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just, like, there are a lot of really solid moments in this movie, besides the weird non-animal nudity.
Yeah.
That was still so weird.
And it works so well because someone went through this script, and, like, it had to have been multiple people, but they really worked it out.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this movie did not work for a long time with how much they've talked about it, that it didn't work for a long time.
Yeah, they really... This is one of those movies where we talk a lot about when there are movies that have flaws, and I say, I really wish it had taken like 1 or 2 more drafts to this thing. This feels like a movie that had enough drafts, which is good, because I want more movies like this that feel like really thought out story-wise. The other thing so we get to the finale, which I saw coming because there was certainly some Chekhov's guns happening, specifically the actual gun, and the fact that one of our like main supporting characters is a predator, and
also they beat you over the head with how this is going to work out.
Yeah,
like they totally like. Really oversell it. Well, not really oversell it, but I mean, like they're telegraphing you how this is gonna go down. Like,
yeah, they do. But you know what I will say? They do make you think that like this is what I'm talking about with like kids getting scared, because you actually the bad guy who's the interim sheep mayor shoots Nick the fox with the pellet, or what she thinks is the pellet, and he goes feral and he attacks, and she's still saying her evil plan.
Yeah, she got him monologuing. They got
her monologuing, and so then you see Nick actually like bite Judy in the neck.
Actually, they had their own running gag about, what was it? It's your word against mine? No, it's your word against yours.
Was there?
Yeah, they did that, like, constantly.
Okay.
Because with every time they used the video or the tape recorder...
Yeah, that's true.
It was that they used that same exchange.
Yeah, that's true. So, but they got her, basically admitting what she did, but the actual him
entrapment,
the actual him putting his mouth around her neck, like little kids are probably gonna get freaked out by that, you know?
Yeah.
That's fairly graphic, even though you can kind of figure out what was going on, you know what I mean?
It's overly telegraphed.
It is overly telegraphed, but you know.
I actually didn't know if the bunny character was in on it.
That's what I wondered too, because I thought that maybe she didn't know.
I didn't know if she knew or if she didn't know.
Yeah, I was the same way. So I felt like there was a little where you weren't quite in on it, you know?
I knew the fox, Nick, changed out the pellets for the blueberries, which conveniently the bunnies started growing on their farm scenes earlier.
Yeah. So anyway,
and you know they started growing the blueberries, and then a scene later when she meets up with the fox again, then they're in the car trying to figure it out, heading on their lead, and the fox is eating more blueberries, and then those blueberries constantly showed up throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Just to let you know that they still had more blueberries.
Yeah. So And then it ends, and like what I do like
and then
is
just before they exchange the pellets and the blueberries, which they do conveniently off camera, you see the fox handling more of the blueberries, and he drops some out on the floor. You know,
Yeah.
You know, they over telegraph the blueberries. Is what I'm trying to.
the blueberries.
The blueberries.
They go into blueberry cereal.
I should not have taken that gum you gave me during the film. Because now,
we didn't eat any popcorn, so.
I know my jaw is all sore though.
Fine. So, the thing I like about it though is how it ends, because it's a fairly frank about how, you know, that life is more complicated than a city motto post. Yeah, exactly. A city motto on a bumper sticker, but that she still believes that people aren't inherently good, and that if everybody tries their best, they can all work together. It's a fairly, like I said, it's still very optimistic. It's very Disney, but it's done in a way that I feel like is a more sincere message of positivity in a Disney movie, to the point where even Idris Elba's character says, who it plays, I don't know if we've talked about him playing the elk or the whoever he played.
I don't know what that is. I know what that animal is, but
water buffalo?
Maybe.
He plays I don't know if we've said it yet,
He's
but
the police chief.
He plays the police chief. I feel like we might have said it before the. But he says something like, "What, you think this is one of those movies where we all hold hands and sing and you like?" He basically describes your classic Disney movie, where like there's a big musical number and everybody lives happily ever after. Well, life isn't like that.
To be fair, the end of this movie, the end credit sequence is a big dance number.
That is true. With Shakira. That went on a little long.
That went on so long.
I was like, I just want to see I just want to see where. It was weird because I was expecting the cast. I was expecting the voice actors to be announced earlier than that, and I kept waiting and waiting. I'm like, how many writers were on this thing? I mean, I know you guys rewrote it.
I think it was more like they had this thing where it was like, oh, Shakira's gonna be, you know, to get her to do the voice, you have to give her a musical number thing.
Yeah.
You know, I feel that's what that was.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say her character, they didn't push her throughout the whole movie. She just kind of was like there
for a few lines.
And it wasn't too bad. Like I could see a
Yeah, she did a good fine job. It's just that the ending song just had so much to it that it felt like I was waiting forever.
Well, we had also already heard it, because that was the one that was from the montage at the beginning when Judy is going to the city
her song's also in the
which
montage.
Honestly worked better because it had way better visuals in that part.
I don't know what this car's doing.
Just be careful driving.
I'm guessing you passed up your exit. Hopefully.
Yeah, probably. So. To wrap up, I will say I really liked the relationship between Nick and Judy in this. It was very antagonistic on his part at the beginning, but I feel like she held her own enough. And the most important thing is it wasn't a love story. There was no romance in this movie.
Although I could see where possibly in other drafts it was there.
I could totally see that. I'm super glad it wasn't. Especially because, like, they have not talked about, like, I don't know, maybe there will be a romance between the two of them in the sequel, and they'll get into, like, interspecies marriages, because that was not at all.
Not covered.
That was not at all covered, period. Which makes me wonder if that's the place that they would go, because they've already gone with what? Government corruption, systemic oppression, systemic prejudice against various groups. Not quite getting into sexism, even though there were certain elements I could totally see applying to sexism in stories. I don't know, like it got into like a lot of pretty heavy stuff for a kids movie. So I could honestly see interspecies marriage as, you know, as a an allegory for interracial marriage. It's you know, it could happen. But yeah, I think the one thing is that you can't see this as a direct allegory to actual racial issues in our world, because, like, none of the predators in this movie were ever enslaved. You know what I mean? I think that's something that we need to point out. Like, this is a really good way to talk about general prejudices and systemic systemic bigotry. But you gotta understand that these are not actually, like, foxes are not black people in this connection. You know what I mean? Because, like, the history of racism in our world is way different from, you know, from what it is in the movie. If you understand what I'm saying.
I get your point.
Yeah, but it's still really...
These are not direct connotations.
Yes, exactly. They're still really good themes, and I'm glad that they brought up. But it could be really easy for someone to make the connections, and they don't really work quite that way. It's still really good for kids to see these stories. You just have to understand that these aren't exact parallels. You know? Direct
connotation.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's a really good movie. I feel like we keep saying that. I had a really good time. There were even, like, the more punny, like, why are you making jokes about, like, pop culture-y things? Those were fairly kept to a minimum, and most of the jokes were, like, character-driven stuff, which I would much rather have in a movie like this. And also, as someone who is, you know, who was just in her 20s not that long ago, I completely related to Judy as a character. Hardcore. Like, that whole, like, being optimistic and wanting to go for your dreams and being completely undermined and being completely, you know, people not believing in me and that sort of thing. Like, oh my gosh, I completely connected to that.
I can't believe this review went on so long that we got actually home.
I know, but we had stuff to talk about. Also, I feel like a lot of it was me trying to come up with ways to phrase things before the spoilers, because I wanted to talk about it. I don't know if there's anything else to say. I really liked this movie. I thought it was done really well, except for, like, the couple things that bothered me, but mostly it was done really well.
Done excellent.
Alright. With that, at almost an hour, I think it's time to go. Katie, Mike, justplainsomething.com. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye!